finally, alarm trainers, we have, oh god, the PTS has shown some horrifying things. We have the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hi trainers, I'm Teeds, this is Nuts, and today we're going to be talking about the changes that are on the PTS that could be coming to the live client. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Rayquaza changes, some good things they've added to Pokemon Unite, and the changes that have been tested by the math court on some Pokemon. So we're talking about some buffs, some nerfs. It's like a patch notes, but it's not the official patch notes, if that makes sense. Before I jump into it, if you could subscribe and click the bell to be notified for more videos. As you can see here, roughly only 50% of you are subscribed. If we could get that number to a 55%, we're starting off small, okay? But honestly, we can increase it. Okay, let's jump into it. First, the Rayquaza changes. Rayquaza had 3 things changed. So all the numbers and everything in this video have been tested by 2 individuals named Haru and Lance, and this is from the math court. So these changes are not final. These are still in the PTS. They might not make it to the live clients. I will say that a lot of the things from the PTS, which is the public test servers, have made it into the live client. I don't think they usually change a lot or too much. It is likely this will make it to the live client, but there's still a chance that it won't. So please keep that in mind. And these are just tested by these wonderful people that took the time to test it. So take it with a grain of salt. It's not official just yet. First, the Rayquaza changes. Rayquaza's shield, the value has been increased from 30% to 45%. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think it is based off your max health. So I think that defenders and supporters or Pokemon with more health will have a bigger shield. But again, correct me if I'm wrong. But you can see here, I was testing this on Cinderace on my PTS server and my Switch. And you can see that it is more on the Cinderace. Do keep in mind that Cinderace has one of the lowest health pools in the game. So the change doesn't look as massive probably, but there is a change. And I was just like, okay, they just buffed the shield. That's fine. It's okay if they buffed the shield, but they nerfed like the other things maybe. Oh no, trainers. You haven't even heard like the worst part. They also increased the scoring speed. So not only you have more shield, you also have increased scoring speed. So before it was a 50%, now it's like a 75%. Look at this. Look at this. Look how fast the new one is. Look how quick the new one is. It's so fast. You have more shield. You are now faster. So there is no counter to it between the 2 buffs on Rayquaza or nerfs. Like, depends on how you see it. And it's not even the worst part. There's even more that's even worse. That's not a word. The extra damage. So Rayquaza gives you a damage boost of 30%. And I think it's to your overall damage with like everything, I think. It's not 30% anymore. It's now 60%. They doubled it. They increased it. So you now have more shield, way more damage, and an extremely fast scoring speed. And it feels like they're trying to turn it into Zapdos again, which was incredibly unfair back in Remote Stadium. Or it could, I don't know, when I think about it, I don't know which is worse. I don't know if Rayquaza in PTS is worse or Zapdos is worse, because the damage boost is insane. You get 60% damage increase. You have more shield and you have scoring speed. At least with Zapdos, they didn't have a shield or a damage increase, so you were still able to try and take them out on a fair level, like a fair fighting field. But in terms of this Rayquaza perk, you are not on a fair living field anymore. A lot of people were very upset because Rayquaza's health was decreased, which means it was a lot easier to rip Rayquaza and just get Rayquaza and get the benefits of Rayquaza. But now Rayquaza is even worth more now because it does so much more. This makes it really difficult because what made Rayquaza so great at the start was that there was now a way to counter people getting this big buff. It wasn't like with Zapdos where only the last 2 minutes mattered. It was like they got Rayquaza, but there was still so many counter plays that we could apply in the match to counter Rayquaza or to counter their scoring, that they're making Rayquaza turn more into Zapdos. At least that's how I see it. I don't know, maybe some of you might like this. I personally don't like it. I actually liked Rayquaza for the counter play, so I like that even if they got Rayquaza, it wasn't like almost an insta L. You can still counter it and come back from it. So in the comments down below for the question of the day, let me know what you think, because personally for me, I am not a fan of it, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I would like like to note that with the previous Rayquaza damage buff, apparently it was just your basic attacks and your first move that dealt more damage, but I didn't screenshot where I read this. I don't remember if it was from the Discord or it was from Twitter. I follow a lot of people that do testing, and I read somewhere that it now applies to all of your moves. Again, this is not official information or anything like that. It's just something that I've read, so take it with a grain of salt because things are not final until they come into the actual game. So we'll see if this change makes it to the game, but it sounds pretty scary. Like, it sounds horrible to fight against. That's the worst of it. We still have some good. They have now separated the queues. It says here 2 to 3 players, and here it says 5 players. So now when you queue with like 2 to 3 players or 2 to 5 players. I don't know where solo queuers go because I'm automatically on the 2 to 3. I don't know if this counts for solo queue players. I am wondering if there's going to be a separate leaderboard for like solo queue, duo, 5-mans, etc. Some people had concerns with the whole, is the player base like big enough for this to separate the queues this much? I'm wondering if it's going to prioritize these queues and then maybe just go into like an all queue. I have no idea, but I think it's a good step in the right direction. I think it's good that they do separate. You know, as a person who mainly solo queues in Pokemon Unite, I've had my fair share of going against like 5-man parties. It's extremely rough. It's very hard going against a very coordinated team with all the communication in the world with your team who are just solo queuers and don't have the communication aspect. And this game gets such an advantage if you have good communicators. So that is really good that they're separating the queues. I hope they work more around this area. I think it's really cool. The next really good thing, now this is awesome, but we now have a stack counter. As you can see here with my definitely really good Cinderace build. Not really, please don't follow this build. I have attack weight, special attack specs, and I have AO's cookie. I am stacking and it is counting. Stack counter. Every time I stack, the number goes up. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to count in my head. Every time I did it myself, I was just horribly wrong about it. I was way off. I was like, oh yeah, I'm already at max stacks, but in reality, I was at like 3. So it's really good that we have a stack counter now. This makes it so much easier. But for me personally, coming from Smites, we had stack counters in Smite and I found that very good to have. But I do support this whole stack counter thing. I think it's very good for the game. And the last thing we have, so from the math cord, from Kohari and Lance testing, we do have some of the changes that are coming to Pokemon Unite that they have tested. Again, it is not official or anything like that. It is from their testing and what they found. Huge thanks to them for taking the time to do this. First, I want to talk about the stats that haven't been tested yet. So for Slowbro is getting a buff. Its defenses have been increased, now tankier than before. So this is a buff for Slowbro. For Duraludon, the Unite move damage has been increased. Now you deal more damage in the Unite move. For Sylveon, Mystical Fire, the damage has been increased, which is really cool because I always liked Mystical Fire. But the unfortunate thing about Mystical Fire is that it targets Pokemon, enemies, and things like that over objectives. You can't actually target objectives with Mystical Fire. If you could, I think that would be such a huge buff for Mystical Fire. With Draining Kiss, there is a 1-second cooldown reduction and the healing has been increased. So the Mystical Fire and Draining Kiss build is something that I'm very excited to try again. This seems really, really cool. Then we have Dodrio. Fire attack, the non-full gauge damage has been decreased and the full gauge boosted damage has been increased. So when it's not fully gauged, the damage is decreased. So we have a nerf on that. We have a buff on when it's like full, so the damage has been increased for that. For Gardevoir, overall stats increased, or at least the offensive ones. The Unite move cooldown reduction 112 seconds. We are getting a buff for Gardevoir, which is cool because we haven't seen Gardevoir like that often. Zoroark, Night Slash, 2 seconds cooldown increase. So Night Slash now has a longer cooldown. For Feint Attack, the damage has been increased. For Fable, the defenses have been increased. You're now more tankier as Clefable. But for Moonlight, you have a sound nerf. People were complaining about the Moonlight being like too loud. So now the sound has been nerfed. With Mr. Mime, the Confusion, the damage has been decreased on power swap targets. So now when you're power swapping a target and use the Confusion, the damage has now been decreased. You won't deal as much. And then for Blastoise, the Surf has a 1-second cooldown reduction. I love Surf on Blastoise ever since I did that video where Max and I were doing the double Surf. That was really fun. And there is one more change on a Pokemon that hasn't been talked about in this little testing. Mew has been changed as well in terms of stats, it seems, but it doesn't say what that is yet. Those are the changes that we have based on these people's testings. Huge shout outs to them. Thank you so much for doing that. It's very much appreciated for the community. Gives us some insight on what we can expect and what we don't want to see and what we want to see. I'm very curious to see what the final changes are when it comes to the live client. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about these buffs and nerfs. I would love to read them. I'm very happy with the stack counter. I think the stack counter is going to make the game less about like, oh my god, am I fully stacked, and more about, yeah, I have 4 stacks, need 2 more, let's go fight or something like that. I don't know. Okay, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Trainers, let me know in the comments down below what you think. Like the video if you enjoyed this. Comment down below your opinions, and I hope to see you for the next one. Bye.